Meeting on February the 18th. I'll call the meeting to order. Ask for a motion, please, for the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Elmsley and Dunn. All in favor? That's passed. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in today's agenda? Seeing none. We got a couple of announcements to make before we get started with deputations. I'm just going to turn it over to our Acting Chief, Andrew Rafton, who's going to make couple introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to members of council and members of senior staff. It's my pleasure today make a couple of announcements. One, I don't think I'm being too presumptive, but I think as of yesterday, I can now officially say that I'm now the Chief of Paramedic Service and no longer the acting chief. So I want to thank C.A. Ron Taylor for bestowing that upon me, and I don't take that lightly, and it's an exciting opportunity in my career. I never anticipated that I'd be ever acting in the chief's role, but I much appreciate the support and confidence that senior staff and council have in me, and I look forward to carrying on for the rest of the year. As you may recall from last year's budget presentation, we talked about a restructuring in the paramedic department, and it was actually a downsizing of senior staff. We went from an upper management team of 4, and we've now downsized to a team of 3. So we now have a chief and 2 deputy chiefs for the first time in the history of our service. We have now a Deputy Chief of Operations and a Deputy Chief of Professional Standards, which is actually a new title. The Professional Standards now encompasses the old portfolio of Commander of Quality Assurance and Education. We're very fortunate to have retained one of our former commanders in Sarah Johnston. So Sarah is not new to our department. She was the former Commander of Quality Assurance and Education. Sarah is a lifelong resident of Kawartha Lakes. She came to our service at the time of amalgamation in December of 2002, originally as a primary care paramedic, and then she became an advanced care paramedic in 2006. While working full-time, Sarah went back to school and studied full-time at Trent University, earning herself a degree in Bachelor of Science in Biology with a minor in business. And I want to emphasize that she was able to do that while she continued to work full-time for us. So it was quite an achievement. She's been a facilitator at our Central East Base Hospital for a number of years, working in their educational department, and then became our Commander of Quality Assurance in 2014. And she held that title until last April, when she was appointed the acting Deputy Chief. So Sarah now joins us as our new Deputy Chief of Professional Standards. And I'll just have her say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone, Mayor and Council. It's been a challenging year for paramedic services, as you all know, so certainly we appreciate all your ongoing support and confidence in our department and in ourselves as leaders. So thank you all for that and stopping in and saying congratulations and the ongoing collaborative efforts that we'll have. So I certainly appreciate that and look forward to working hard and continuing all the work that we've been doing in paramedic services and serving the community. So thank you all.
To fill the role of Deputy Chief of Operations, we looked outside of the service, and we had a number of applicants from across the province that applied, and we were able to narrow it down to Patricia Bromfield. Patricia comes to us from Toronto Paramedic Services. Patricia earned her diploma in paramedicine from Loyalist College in 2005 and joined the Toronto Paramedic Services right away as a primary care paramedic. She steadily progressed throughout the organization there, first working as an operations superintendent, proceeded on to an administrative superintendent, and most recently, she was the acting deputy commander of Toronto Paramedic Service. While working in Toronto, she continued her educational pursuits, and she pursued a degree in paramedic clinical practice from Charles Strutt University. Patricia brings a very strong background in health and safety, labor relations, and process improvement to our department. So we're very excited to have Patricia on board. She resides in the Curtis area, although she does tell me that, hopefully someday she'll be looking at joining us here in Kawartha Lakes. She's married to a firefighter from Toronto, and she has 2 children. So we're really excited to bring Patricia on board, and I'll have her say a few words.
First of all, I'd just like to thank each of you for welcoming me into the service. Just to say, I am very excited to extend my career here with the City of Kawartha Lakes. Also looking forward to having an opportunity to meet each of you personally and chat a little bit more about some of the ongoing projects which I've learned about being introduced into the service, and learning a little bit more about your expectations from us as a service and how we can meet the needs of the community. Again, just to extend my thanks for the welcome. It's been an exceptional welcome, and everybody so far has been very, very, I've met a few of you. People have stopped by and said hello, but the welcome has been very warm. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so I did want to, Andrew did a great job of just sort of outlining the 2 talents that we have at the Deputy Chiefs. I do want to sort of reiterate or certainly thank Sarah for the last 8 or 9 months in the acting role. You stepped up. We've had minimal staffing. We've had a lot of transition, both locally but even provincially, and issues. So thank you for that leadership that you took on. Andrew sort of opened up and maybe was a bit presumptuous, but in a good way, because the mayor was kind enough to give me a quick opportunity to formally announce that Andrew, who's been serving as the acting chief for the last year almost, we have appointed him as the permanent chief. He was planning retirement sort of previously, and I was thrilled that he stayed on with us and sort of took us through this transition. So he's agreed to extend his retirement date a little bit later. So we've got him here for the 2020 year. And again, I want to thank you, Andrew, for the last 9 months. You really did step up. And congratulations on your new appointment. And thanks, Mayor, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Congratulations to all. And careful what you wish for, Andrew. Your probation period is over. I'm going to turn it over to our clerk. Kathy Ritchie wants to make a quick announcement.
Through you, Mayor, I'm pleased to announce that we have selected a new deputy clerk, with Anne Ruth moving on to the Township of Trent Lakes. We quickly started our recruitment process. We went inside and outside of the organization looking for the best fit, and we found it within. So I am pleased to announce that Sarah O'Connell is our new deputy clerk. Sarah has been with the city for over 12 years. She has been in the clerk's department for 10. She is a familiar face to council and our directors and our public, and has certainly proven herself over these last few months filling in for Anne. But we're excited that she will be starting February 10th officially. And Sarah.
Thank you very much. I'm not prepared to say anything, but just thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to contributing my contribution to the clerk's office.
Congratulations. Well done. Councillor Dunn, did you have a quick comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to, we've got 4 promotions here, and I would like to congratulate everybody. And I dare say that if the 2 deputy chiefs and the chief came to the railing, we'd probably all want to go up and shake their hands and congratulate them on their new appointments.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 4, which is deputations. We have one deputant today regarding a high water bill adjustment for 60 King Street in Woodville. It's regarding item 6.1.1 on the agenda. Mr. Brian Henry, welcome, sir. Just remind you have 5 minutes. Just flip the mic on there if you would. Perfect.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of senior staff. My name is Brian Henry. Just by way of background, I'm a former childcare worker with the Catholic Children's Aid Society, also a youth corrections officer in Toronto, and as well as that, a former police officer with the Metropolitan Toronto Police Services. As part of my retirement objective, it's always been my lifelong plan to be able to give back to the community. And as such, last year, in June 12th, I purchased 60 King Street in Woodville. It's a former Knox Presbyterian church. And although this property was advertised as a single-family residence, the objective in my acquisition of this property was to restore this beautiful, historic church back to its original function as a church and as a community use facility. Let me see if I advance it this way. How does this work here? Okay, there we go. So this is just a couple of shots here of this facility. Restoration began immediately after closing on this property, and in approximately 7 short months, we've been able to have this property open to the community as a youth drop-in center, as a temporary homeless shelter, and on some of the nights when they had the extreme cold weather advisories, we would open it as such for anyone that was in need. You can see from this Facebook post that the community was very much received this offering very well, and it has helped to build that community and bring cohesion to that community in a way that that meets the objective that I had this for. We've also been able to have fellowship potluck lunches at this location, opening it again to the community, helping to have people get together and participate in whatever it is that we were able to do to help. We've also had it in this time of the teachers' strike. We've opened it as well as a daycare for parents that did not have any any care for their children during this time. We've also been able to partner with the Kawartha Lakes OPP Canine Unit. They have promised to bring their dogs out so that this would be a location that the kids could also be introduced to their dogs and just be a part of, just to help to build the community again. Now, what brings me here today is that in August of last year, I received a high water bill for this location in the amount of approximately $7,300. Immediately after receiving this notice, I contacted the City of Kawartha Lakes and advised them of this, and within 24 hours, they had somebody out there, which I thought was awesome. They were able to determine at that time that there was a leak. These two properties here, the church on the left and the original manse to the right there, water was coming through the manse and going to the church. And there was some sort of rupture in the infrastructure underground, which was causing a spill between the church and the manse. This led to the spill of approximately 900 to 1 million liters of water in that time period. The City of Kawartha Lakes had someone come out, and we were able to determine where the spill was. We began to make corrections on that. What you can see here is that the 2 meters for the buildings were in the manse. It wasn't at the church. There was never a water meter in the church. So there was no way of me being able to monitor the water usage. They provided a temporary line between the 2 buildings. I hired Kelsey Plumbing. I'd recommend them. They were very, very good with what they did. And they trenched along and installed a 1-inch line from the curb stop and installed a water meter in the church building for the first time. A lot of construction there. That cost approximately $3,200, which I paid out of pocket. As the winter is upon us, it will be another $1,500 to repair the grounds, the lawn, and to redo the surface of the driveway. And that is our new water meter there. Now, I'm here before council today because I'm looking to have this water bill, which is still outstanding, at approximately $5,800, to have relief from this bill. We are committed to providing services to the community, to building this community, and since this was out of my purview, out of my control, I believe that there is some section 11.1 would offer that opportunity. Obviously, that will be, the final decision will be that of council. We are committed again to working with the community and the surrounding communities in Woodville and the surrounding hamlets to build that community, make it a better place, and that is my deputation for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's get a motion to receive. We'll see if there's any questions for you, Councillor Vale and Elmsley. Councillor Dunn, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This water bill is from June to August.
Correct.
Do you know if the church was occupied prior to that?
It was not occupied prior to that. In those immediate months, it was not occupied.
Yeah, okay. I'm just struggling, and I'm going to ask staff later on when I have an opportunity.
Sure.
But I guess what I'm trying to get at is, do we have any way of knowing? We know what the final result was as far as the amount of water spilled. Do we have any idea what time period that spill may have taken place over? Like, was it spilling in May and April and stuff like that? That's the kind of question I'm trying to get at. Do we have?
Yes. So in response to that question, there was an owner that had a final bill at the time of the transfer of the property, and so I started clean and on June, and so it started from zero on June, and so between that time the spill occurred.
Do we have any idea what his final bill was?
Yes, his final bill was approximately $4,000.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Vale?
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Henry. So just a quick question. So you took over in June. This is June to August. So was there any of your own water usage in that period?
Yes, there was.
Okay.
And I just want to just add to that after the water meter was installed, the subsequent bill was $120. So that gives a sense of what the normal usage would have been, and that would have been for approximately 2.5 months for $120. So the problem has been corrected.
Okay. So further to that, just because, and this might touch on a little bit of Councillor Dunn, I was just curious, same thing. It looks like that the leak likely occurred before you purchased the building, right? For him to have a water bill of $4,500, it sounds like it started before you took over. So would this be something that your title insurance would cover or pick up as part of your transaction?
The title insurance covered his part of the bill, so that there has been relief offered in that respect. There's also been a $1,500 offered through the City of Kawartha Lakes for part of the bill that brought the price or the amount down from $7,300 to what it is there. So that my title insurance covered his final bill, and then we're now pushed beyond that to where we are now today.
Good. Councillor Elmsley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the deputy. Thank you for coming today, and thanks for your remarks. Was there any noticeable pooling of water or dampness in the lawn that was noticed?
Well, the dampness that was noticed was because the properties are legally severed. We did not. If you can notice, it is on the adjacent property. That's where they noticed it. So they did do a walkabout on that property, and as they came to the back, they noticed that there was softening of the ground and began to dig at that point and noticed the pooling at that point.
And do you also own the manse?
No, I don't. They
You
are
don't?
legally severed. Yes.
And the water meter was in the manse and
Yes.
not in the church?
Yes, so this is a picture of the water meter in the manse, and they have 2 meters there. The church meter was the one to the left. And again, I had no access to that because it was in the manse.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to receive. Are there any other questions for the deputant? And then what I'll do is I'll move item 6.1.1, the report. We'll move it up and deal with it. Director, do you want to comment when we get to the report? Is that a better spot? Thank you. We have a motion to receive. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. I'll move the report up now and we'll deal with it and see if we can do anything.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. Okay, item 6.1.1 is the report. That report, Corp. 220001, high water bill adjustment, 60 King Street, Woodville, be received. Let's deal with the receive it first, and then we'll see if there's a follow-up motion. Councillor Yeo and Elmsley, any questions on receiving? All in favor? That's passed. Follow-up? Any follow-up motion? Councillor Yeo?
I give you a motion that relief as requested be granted.
So in the report, the council approves relief in the amount of $5,838.76 as a one-time exemption, and that this recommendation be brought forward to council for consideration at the February 18th regular council meeting.
Correct?
The seconder? Councillor Ashmore, you want to speak to it?
Yeah, these circumstances seem to be beyond the proponent's ability to either know about at the time of purchase, being on the other property, and it's just bad situation. And I think this is very deserving of a one-time exemption. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore, do you want to? Director, you were going to comment on some of the questions that were raised earlier. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some clarity. The previous owner did have an outstanding bill at the time of closing, as suggested by the deputant, but that was not relevant to one billing cycle. So there wasn't a massive leak happening at the time of closing. It would appear based on water consumption there was a small leak, but not a massive leak.
But there was no carryover of that amount through the new billing cycle. As the deputant stated, he took it over free and clear. And this amount that accumulated was once the ownership was taken from June till August, correct?
So not entirely. The deputant did not, at closing, make sure that the bills were paid. So that amount actually was going to transfer over to property taxes. We worked with the deputant to ensure that he could go back through his lawyer to the previous tenant or the previous owner and have them pay that outstanding amount. So the amount of $5,800 that's outstanding now is simply after we reduce the $1,500 as allowed under the policy. As well, we had the new water meter installed and the line put in at no cost.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dunn?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not so much on this topic, but after we have dealt with it, I'm wondering why, after council directed that these matters would be brought to the High Water Bill Committee, why it's in this venue anyway. Because there was an attempt to remove the committee. Council overruled the attempt, and staff has decided to disregard council and go ahead and bring it to committee of the whole anyway. So I'd like to comment on that after we're done.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. I think according to our new policy, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have it in front of me, that staff can grant up to $1,500, and then anything over and above that, it's beyond staff's mandate to grant that relief, and then it would come to council. I thought the idea of the High Water Bill Committee was something that's outside of the policy if it wasn't coming directly to council. But to me, this was part of the policy moving forward, and I'm spitballing here, so correct me if I'm wrong.
That was my understanding as well, that because this was above the $1,500, the policy currently says that would come directly to council.
I think it did too, but we can get clarification.
That
on
was the
later.
recommendation made by staff to council when it was brought up at the last council meeting. That was the recommendation, and disband the High Water Bill Committee. Council decided no, and because it falls outside of their ability to deal with it, because they did give the $1,500, which they're allowed to deal with under policy, then anything else should have come to the High Water Bill Committee, because this is not the only incident that's coming down the pipe where it's coming to the Committee of the Whole. And my belief is if council gives direction to staff that they want these things to come to the High Water Bill Committee, that's where they should go, not to CAO, because I actually asked a question on this. I asked why we're doing that, and staff's response to me, well, we have to write 2 reports. It's easier for us if, in fact, we just bring it straight to Committee of the Whole, because the High Water Bill Committee invariably, on the majority of cases, supports the appellate. And that was their reason for not wanting to use the High Water Bill Committee, and then they've gone past the High Water Committee and brought it to this council.
We'll
So-
get clarification on that moving forward. Did you have a final comment, Director?
I just wanted to add some clarity. So the matter that Councillor Dunn's referring to is that the water bylaw came forward, brought forward by Public Works Department, and suggested the removal of the High Water Bill Committee, and Council's direction was to reinstate that committee. The actual policy that the High Water Bill adjustments are made under, and under the High Water Bill Committee's mandate, says that anything over 1,500 should go to council.
That was my understanding as well, but let's just get clarification on that policy moving forward, and we'll make sure we're all on the same page. Regardless, we have a motion here today to grant the full exemption that's requested. You have a copy of the report in front of you. Are there any further questions? Councillor O'Reilly?
Yes, just for clarification, are we talking about 1,500 plus the 5,800?
The 1,500 has already been granted off the full amount.
Yeah.
The full amount was 7,000 and something.
Yeah.
The 1,500 was taken off. The balance that they're proposing here is the 58,3876.
Okay, I just can't support giving it all back. I can support giving some relief, but I just, at this point, I can't support giving the 1,500 plus the 5,800, because I think there is some due diligence when you buy the property. There's a lawyer that's involved, and there's title insurance, and there's a lawyer. So at this point, I can't support giving it all back.
Thank you. Councillor Elmsley?
It was along the same lines, Mr. Mayor. Does that mean that the bill would be zero, or is it so? Would it not be reasonable that the bill be, I don't know, a few $100s anyway, that would indicate that water had been used? And so maybe I'll ask for a friendly.
Why don't we ask and see, do you have any idea what the normal billing cycle is for this facility over the years, just with maybe before there was any kind of a leak? Do you have any kind of record on that?
So in 2018, billing was in the neighborhood of $300 per quarter.
In 2018?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
In 2019, they started having the leak.
I think, that's the valid argument that there's some water usage going there. I think the argument from the deputant, not the argument, but the case is that, he's spent a lot of money out of his own pocket correcting the problem. So, whether you want to ask that the $300 be taken off that amount or whatever is totally up to you. But I think that's the argument, that we're just trying to get back to square one moving forward.
Well, I think the fact that he spent a bunch of money out of his own pocket maybe offsets that. So I'm good with the decision.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore?
Just through you to Director Stover, I just wanted to clarify the meter that was there before it was replaced. Was it functioning properly, 100%? Obviously it wasn't. So did staff verify that it was malfunctioning, that meter that was there, before they put a new one in?
It's my understanding that both the Director of Public Works water staff and the Corporate Services water staff both attended the property. It's my understanding that the water meter was working accurately.
Can the Director of Public Works comment on
Well, I
that?
thought the report says the meter wasn't working, so it was
Yeah, that's what I
replaced, so I'm a little bit
what I
confused there.
thought, too.
The report states that any repair to collect the leak was the property owner. Mr. Henley was advised contact plumber complete the necessary repairs. Completed the installation of a new meter at the subject property, or is that because it was going through the manse before and the $320 fee for the meter was waived by the city as well to assist? So I don't think it was a faulty meter. I think it was just a new meter was installed on the church to separate it from the manse, correct? Okay. All right, sir. Anyone else? You want to sum up, Councillor Yeo? Actually,
Yeah.
before you do, can I just say something real quick? Traditionally, I don't support these recommendations. Call me what you want. But I think when we put a new policy in place, we put that policy in place, and to me, this is exactly why we put that policy in place, to, if there's a fault and it's not, not the fault of a leaky toilet that somebody's ignored for 6 months and they got a high water bill and we're going to give them a refund. This was something that, that was done. It was obviously no fault of the owner. They've spent considerable money correcting the problem. They got on it right away, right at first. They didn't leave it forever and ever. And, they spent some money out of pocket regardless for what this facility is being used for in the community. It seems to me that, and staff granted the $1,500 based on that, which is within the policy, is what they're able to do. And now it's here, and we can argue about whether it should have came to High Water Bill Committee or it's here in front of council. But I think it's a valid argument to waive this fee as a one-time exemption to get it back to zero. And I'll be supporting your motion, Councillor. But you want to sum up? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, and those words, I can echo them. To the Deputy Mayor's point, the meter, the leak, everything was not even on the property when the person bought it, and to say that they should have known is a stretch. So that's why I'm sitting here asking for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Henry, you're good. That's a recommendation. Will go to council on February 18th, and we'll see what happens there. But your recommendation from council is to approve your request.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Thank you.
afternoon.
Have a great day. Okay, we'll move into our next presentation, which is item 5.1, which is a service modernization review from CAO Ron Taylor.
Sorry. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and for the opportunity just to provide you with, I'll say, a mid-review touch point. Although we were just talking about this when we were doing budgets in December. I don't know if it just seemed like yesterday or seemed like several months, but we're back and want to talk to you a little bit about things that are happening at the provincial level predominantly, but how those are really affecting whether it's our day-to-day or sometime down the line, it'll be impacting our day-to-day. And so I've talked to you a couple of times very generally about these modernization reviews. So in March of last year, the province announced a one-time fund for municipalities. And that fund was intended for municipalities. It was unconditional. It was one-time funding to basically do or initiate efficiency reviews, to do strategic capital investments that would create efficiencies longer term in budgets, or to look at expenditure containment strategies, basically doing line-by-line audits and reviews to find efficiencies. And at that time, the City of Kawartha Lakes was provided that one-time payment of $725,000. At the time, council opted, At that time, council opted to sort of almost a wait-and-see approach in the early days. We put the money in the reserve, and we were looking to see where the different provincial reviews were heading. and what were some of the opportunities or things that we were seeing when we were going into our 2020 budget deliberations. So on that fund, we've had some commitments that were already made since. $50,000 was committed for immediate reviews at the time, and whether those were internalized or they were shared service reviews that we're doing with the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus or others. Council approved that. Then we also, through the 2020 budget deliberations and approval of the budget, committed about another $376,000 to various reviews, processes, or technology enhancements through the budget. And so we still have in that fund just shy of $300,000, and we'll be coming to you regularly with recommendations either for in future budget cycles or for specific reviews that we need to get ahead of and do. And so this is a listing from or extracted from the 2020 budget, which outlines that $376,000 of funds, what we applied it to. And you could see that the lion's share, well, really a good portion of it was investing in technology or software where we were making our processes more efficient or tracking certain information. And so that was one commitment. The other alignment was with some of our plans that we're doing, which is pretty standard business for us anyways, but wanting to leverage those checkpoints and really looking at our operations and trying to get immersed in those plans, future restructure recommendations or efficiencies, ways of doing business. You would have heard me talking in December, for example, about the paramedic deployment review and master plan, but which was really looking at how we deliver the service and any efficiencies that we could find in deployment, for example. Sorry, keep going backwards here. And so at the conclusion of the 2020 budget deliberations, there was also some additional direction that you provided to us to look at other areas of our budgets. And it was either for efficiency reviews and in particular certain budget areas. The graphic that's in front of you is really that summary or snapshot of the 2020 operating budget and the different sort of categories within it. And I'm going to talk now about the one area where you provided some direction for review in the $16.4 million segment or portion on materials, supplies, and services. So formal direction was given that we reduce that particular operating budget area by $300,000 in year. And again, I said that total budget is about $16.4 million. But when we talked about some strategies or areas that we wanted to do a line-by-line review or look at areas where we could at least influence some immediate savings, this is where you directed we have a first look at. And so we've initiated or started that review. We're on track and target to meet that minimum $300,000 for the 2020 budget. That's already been approved. We're going to leverage this or use this to look at the entire sort of budget area and potentially bring forward to you in the next budget cycle if there is opportunities for expanded efficiencies or savings in that area. The other direction was to start to look at some service areas in particular. So there was direction to report back on possible service level changes that could realize some savings. You'll recall we had a long conversation about how we could get how we could influence 4% savings on the 2020 budget, and we had a listing of many items or areas at least that we could explore or review further. And you chose these ones in particular to really have a close look at. So one was to look at our insurance program, so our premiums and costs, and if there was any savings related to that, as well as our waste collection and landfill operations areas. So with respect to insurance premiums and costs, again, just to give you an idea of sort of what our plan is of attack. So our current insurance program expires at the end of this year, so we will be in a renewal position. Staff have already sort of started looking at our current program and plan with some possible recommendations. So we want to do that wholesome review in its entirety. Look at sort of some risk tolerance potentially that council would want to consider as well. And then the overall program itself. And we would be bringing back to you formal recommendations so we can get some direction by the end of Q2 to then inform an RFP that we would put out for the renewed services effective 2021. On the landfill operations side of things, there are a number of other initiatives that are taking place. And so I think these particular areas of focus or service areas are very timely. And we want to make sure that these other bigger picture reviews or studies are informing it overall so that you have the best picture to inform the service level moving forward. So on the landfill operations side, we do have a project scheduled for 2020 to do an EA on our landfill capacity throughout the city. And I think that'll be a great informing piece for you to then be able to determine or provide some direction how you see the service going forward in the coming years. And at the same time, I probably have mentioned previously, the province is doing an extensive modernization review as well on a producer pay legislation. And those changes are anticipated to come forward to municipalities as well mid-term this year, we hope. So these are really two of the biggies that I think are going to help then inform what are some strategies that we can do moving forward in that program. On the more specific sort of waste collection program side of things, so this would be sort of how we pick up certain focused program areas like construction, like mattress collection, leaf and yard type collection. So staff have already initiated some review of those programs. That was actually in anticipation of the 2020 budget. But as you can appreciate, any of those particular decisions are likely going to come with a service reduction. We were approached by a third party, a local business or company in the food industry sector that was interested in looking at a partnership or doing an analysis or a review on a local digester and composting for that, for particular organics. And so we don't have a formal proposal submitted yet, but to me, that's the perfect sort of example of a partnership that we might want to apply some of our modernization funds as well towards to inform our programs moving forward. So stay tuned on that particular one, but I think it was one that was very interesting and it was driven by a third party local business. So we're targeting the end of Q2 similarly with all of these different waste initiatives happening simultaneously, the provincial sort of review taking place. I think that's going to be the perfect timing to inform you, and then if there's any directions that we need to take to inform the 2021 budget, we'd be well positioned to do that. So the sort of third area of update is application-based review funds. And so I mentioned that the province provided a one-time sort of unconditional funding. They've also committed to a multi-year application-based fund where very similarly modernization reviews can take place by municipalities. They can be done as individuals or individual municipalities, or they can be partners with other municipalities. That one's a little bit less applicable in the early days for us because we're a single tier, but a lot of other municipalities out there where there's upper and lower tiers are getting together and reviewing certain shared service models. So the first intake for these applications was out on the street late last year. We did make application. We applied for 2 areas of potential review. one being our fleet program, and the second one being winter control. The stipulations from the province on these funds is that the review must be completed by a third party, can't be an internal look, and the review or the report has to be completed and the report submitted to the municipality no later than June of this year, the end of June of this year. And so right now, those applications are currently under review. We have not heard, the province has started announcing. They announced 26 approvals for shared reviews across the province. They haven't made any announcements yet on individual municipal applications. So we'll keep tracking that one closely. If we're successful, we would be launching almost immediately a procurement process to get those reviews done. If we don't receive the funds, then I'll come back to you with an update in to see what you want to do. If we want to park those, look at those in a future phase, or if we want to mobilize and look at one or both of those program areas through our own resources. So those are the available funds and grants that are out there to complete these reviews or to acquire some of these technology efficiencies. But I think it's important that we sort of keep our eye on just the overall things that are happening or reviews at the province. And I think I did say at our 2020 budget, when we were looking at provincial sort of impacts or what they were looking at, I think I used the term, it's almost a revolution out there in terms of every area, every stone's being turned over, and certainly every department and probably every member of council, either through boards or committees that you sit on, or obviously in our overall budget decision making, we're impacted, and we're impacted in 2020. And I don't see necessarily any light at the end of the tunnel, but I think it's been a good exercise for us to go through, us as a local municipality, but all municipalities, making sure that we're delivering our core services. So this is a listing of what I know of as very active and immediate reviews that are being looked at. So we don't have any announcements on them yet, but many of our departments are all consumed, and this probably isn't even the exhaustive list. There's obviously other legislation reviews and funding reviews going on. But certainly in our human services areas, whether it's Ontario Works, employment services, childcare services, basically every area of that portfolio is being reviewed or being touched in 2020. So we're going to keep our eye on those, and we'll keep you up to date, obviously, as things progress. On the health sort of portfolio or front, Ontario health teams are an active review out there, and applications are active and steady. We have a local application that we're a part of, but again, still sort of in the early days of that particular initiative or transition. And then you're well aware of the public health and the emergency health services modernization reviews that are taking place, and we've had taken a very proactive approach to both of those, whether it's through staff or through council members that are representing us. There's also other reviews, conservation authorities, the core service review. There's changes to the Drainage Act that are contemplated, and there's consultations currently, and Community Safety and Policing Act changes. There's over 50 changes there. A lot of them are sort of macro issues, but some of them do transfer down to the local perspective, whether it's board oversight and so on. So we're going to continue, I think, collectively to respond to these as best we can. We're going to monitor them all as best we can, and certainly try to inform all of the reviews that I had just mentioned previously with these in mind. So again, we're committed to even internally looking for those efficiencies, looking at ourselves, and looking for overall operational efficiencies. I had mentioned to you previously through our lean program, we're also constantly looking at our processes, training staff in looking at efficiencies in process and operations as well. And we've seen some great outcomes to those reviews and just building even just capacity as we're going forward with, our limited revenues, but also sort of our limited resources and really stretching them to the maximum. So with that, I'll conclude, Mr. Mayor, but happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. We'll get a motion to receive. Councillor Elmsley, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Councillor Elmsley had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ron, thank you for the update. There is still funds left from that provincial stipend of $750,000. It looks like we've spent 400 and some. Are there specific plans for that, or it's awaiting more reviews?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we have just shy of $300,000 still in reserve, uncommitted. At this point, we don't have any immediate recommendations. I think one use or potential recommendation would be if in the 2021 budget there's additional efficiencies or technologies, we would want to make that recommendation to you. I think secondly, it's a bit of a wait and see on the application-based reviews. So if we don't get any application grant funding to review, let's say, fleet or winter control, then it is a funding source to look at one or a few of those program areas if you still wish to do so.
And is there a sunset on that amount? Do we have to spend it by a certain time or lose it, or it's kind of there until we choose to use it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's unconditional. It's in the reserve. There's no time limits on completing.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore?
Mr. Mayor, through you to CAO. Just one question. I didn't see anything in there, although you did mention lean, but the Office of Strategy Management. So are you working with them, or do they work with you, or how are they incorporated into this? Because we have that office just targeting efficiencies all the time. So are they part of this process?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, definitely the office is part of our constant and ongoing reviews. So in my conclusionary remarks, I talked a bit about sort of our Make It Better program, and really that's the program that's led through my office and the Office of Strategy Management to specifically train our staff and to audit and review internally and look at our processes and just to look at our programs in general and recommend or identify any efficiencies. We don't fund any of that area from these modernization funds, though. They are sort of leaders internally within our system. We may look at, we obviously subject to council approval, if we're seeing sort of benefits in expanding some of that training or doing internal audits. I mean, we could look at that, but we're not adding additional costs from the modernization reviews to do that.
More question, please. So I think you said 300,000 roughly that you would be requesting that we take out of the budget next year. Is that from your work there, or is that from the strategy management office? I'm just kind of confused as to how they, like, who makes the decision to put forward that amount that we're going to reduce the budget by through the savings and the efficiencies?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So the 300,000 that was directed be reduced in that portion of the budget was actually a council direction. So that was through discussions with you at the end of budget or at the conclusion of budget that we were directed to reduce the 2020 budget by an additional $300,000. So the task now in 2020 is to formalize that and meet that target. We would be doing that through our corporate services division as well as our Office of Strategy Management where needed to review and audit internally that portion of the budget.
Yep. Councillor O'Reilly? Been answered. Any further questions? Seeing none, we have a motion to receive. All in favor? That's passed. Thanks for the update, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll move into item 5.2, which is our cultural master plan. Turn it over to Rebecca Mustard, our Manager of Economic Development. Welcome.
Well, good afternoon. Today we are here to present to you the Cultural Master Plan. This is the second Cultural Master Plan that is being put before you for the city. The first Master Cultural Plan was finished in 2013, and largely all of the activities that were identified in that plan have been completed. So yes, that is a good news story. Today's Cultural Master Plan presentation is an overview of how the Master Plan has come to be to date. The concept was first presented to you back in March of 2019, and the work has been done largely in-house by Deborah Soul, who, as you know, retired at the end of September. So at the end of September until now, she's been working in the backgrounds, just finishing off the document to be able to present it to you today. Deborah was the Arts, Culture and Heritage Officer at the City for 6 years, and prior to that was at the City of Peterborough in cultural planning, and prior to that, an entire career in municipal cultural and economic development work. So we're very fortunate to have her had led this project, and she's going to give you an overview of where it is and present the rest of the plan to you today.
Thank you, Rebecca, and good afternoon. It's nice to see everyone again. So this is the final draft of the 2020 to 2030 Cultural Master Plan, a plan that was based on extensive research and community consultation carried out over the past 8 months. The 2020 to 2030 plan builds on the goals of the 2013 Cultural Master Plan and provides a long-term vision and a strategic action plan to guide growth of the local cultural economy and to ensure its long-term success. The plan development process commenced last spring and progressed through 4 stages. From April till August, there was background research carried out, instruments developed, organizational meetings, profile meetings held. From May to July, cultural assets database was developed and the cultural maps were commenced. May to September, the Cultural Summit was held, the city's first cultural summit. And community research and engagement took place. And from November to December, the draft plan was pulled together. We received feedback from stakeholders, a public meeting was held, and now we're here at the Committee of the Whole with Council. So there were a number of research and consultation methods that were utilized. The city's first Cultural Summit was held in May of this year at the Lakeview Arts Barn. Some of you were there, with approximately 70 participants. And during that summit, we compiled a snapshot of the current Kawartha Lakes cultural landscape. We gathered input on the current sector issues and opportunities and future aspirations. We heard from all stakeholders about a future vision for 2030 for the sector, and we developed some strategic directions for the next 10 years. We also held key stakeholder interviews with leaders from the cultural community who had expressed an interest in participating in more in-depth interviews with structured questions that focused on a future vision for Kawartha Lakes cultural economy, on current issues and opportunities, and on recommended strategies to advance the prosperity and the vibrancy of the sector. We held focus groups that were conducted with cultural stakeholders grouped according to industry categories, which included city staff from various city departments, representatives from Kawartha Lakes cultural businesses, another with representatives from arts-related cultural nonprofit organizations, and another focus group with representatives from heritage-related cultural nonprofit organizations. Cultural organization meetings were an important part of the master plan research process. Self-assessment questionnaires were completed by the board members themselves from all of the incorporated cultural not-for-profit organizations in Kawartha Lakes, and these enabled the boards to self-evaluate their current operational status, the programs and activities being undertaken by their organizations, and to identify their own strengths and weaknesses. Sector-wide development strategies were discussed with all groups, and the boards also considered potential models for a future cultural facility in Kawartha Lakes, or facilities. This research enabled us for the very first time to produce a complete profile of all cultural nonprofit organizations in Kawartha Lakes, identifying and comparing operational plans and budgets, services that they provide, funding sources, events and activities provided by all of these organizations, and their future plans. We also carried out, as part of the research process, surveys with both students, high school students, and community respondents, and almost 200 surveys were completed in that phase of the research. So drawing on the research that was undertaken, the following vision statement was compiled for 2030. Kawartha Lakes is known for its thriving cultural sector. Residents and visitors alike enjoy a wide range of cultural activities, destinations, and events provided by a well-resourced and connected community of engaged stakeholders, including the municipality, which contributes to the vibrant quality of life and a prosperous local cultural economy. So the results of the research were pulled together in a series of priorities, strategic priorities, and there were 7 of them. The first priority is to build cultural sector capacity. The second is to address local factors inhibiting cultural sector growth, and there are a number of those. Priority 3 is to improve cultural spaces and places. 4, expand the cultural sector funding options. 5, develop cultural products based on authentic local culture. Priority 6, collaborate and build partnerships. And priority 7, strengthen cultural promotion and marketing. So, the implementation plan is actually the meat of the plan, embedded within the document. The implementation is its own distinct part of the plan. It identifies the priorities and it gives some background as to why they're important. It talks about the constraints or opportunities that are addressed under each priority. It identifies the objective and recommended actions to achieve the strategic priority, as well as indicators for progress for each of these. So the implementation plan provides, the initial version of it provided a table with a recommended time frame for actions on each strategic priority and objective. And I have to say, this is the one point in my presentation that's actually changed since the slides were prepared. Following conversation dialogue with staff, we've decided not to identify a specific year as a time frame for each of the actions, because the report that's come forward with this plan is that each year there will be actions identified to be considered for implementation in the following year, and that will come to council for their approval and a budget allocation if necessary. Over the 10-year period, I would also note that new opportunities or changes in the local context can take place and likely will take place that would require changes or additions to the specific actions that have been recommended in the plan for each of the priorities. So there is going to be opportunities for review and amendment and updating as the plan moves forward. I would note that the plan is a comprehensive long-term strategic plan for a 10-year period, and that there will be opportunities and the important necessity to review progress on an annual basis as the plan is implemented to continue to move it forward.
Thank you. See if there's any questions for you. We'll get a motion to receive, please. Councillor Riley and Richardson. Question, Councillor Riley?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Deborah, and for coming back to do it. Could you just, it says second bullet point under priorities, addressing local factors inhibiting culture sector growth. Could you just elaborate on what some of them might be,
Okay,
if you have them?
I have it here.
Is that in the report, Councillor? Can we deal with that when we get to the report? Is that part of the presentation? Can we do that when we get to the report, if that's okay? Let's just focus
it's
on
actually
anything
in
around
the
the
report.
presentation right now, and then we'll get there if that's all right. Thanks. Councillor Dunn, go ahead.
Yeah, welcome back, Deborah. On one of your slides there, you said provide support for startup cultural ventures. Can you sort of flesh that out as to what support means?
Which dot point were you referring to?
Well, it'd be about the third last. It was right there at the bottom of the, there was no numbers. I was looking for a number on the page and I couldn't, no, that's not it.
Was it this one? No.
It was right at the bottom of one of the pages and it was large type, so I was able to read it. Yeah, okay, right there under actions, provide business and
Okay.
that-
Yeah.
That was one of them, and then it appeared again as supporting, but that works fine too. Provide business and cultural ventures startup. I just don't know what that means.
It actually means that there should be some support and assistance given through the KLSPEC office to cultural businesses who are wishing to either prepare their first or improve their business plans. That's the sort of support and assistance that that's talking about.
Okay, so we're not, and I guess to get right to the quick of it, we're not saying I need X number of thousands of dollars to start up my business.
No, we're not talking about business loans, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? So I have a quick question. So what's, in your opinion, Deborah, thank you for coming back, by the way, wrapping this up for us. What's the one thing that jumps out to you in the cultural master plan moving forward as our biggest inhibitor to really sort of create that in our community?
Well, I actually have 3 or 4 more slides I could show in case you were to ask that question. I don't know if we can put those up. Okay.
Well, didn't I just walk into that one, right?
You did. Oh, okay. Here we go. Top priorities. So if I were to try and pick out of all of the 7 priorities that are listed in this long-term plan, the ones that are the most important, and I would also say the most urgent to take action on, it would be priority 1 and priority 4. Cultural sector business, professional and nonprofit training, and there's objectives 1 and 2 under that priority, and the second priority for expanding cultural sector funding options. So priority 1, objective 1 is cultural sector not-for-profit organizations and businesses have strong operational, governance, professional and business skills. And the recommended actions are to develop a professional management and business training program for these businesses through economic development and the KLSPEC in partnership with outside agencies. Secondly, to partner with nonprofit agencies to introduce governance training for the boards of nonprofit organizations. Third, to partner with organizations to introduce workshop programs that feature specialists and local organizations that have experience in state-of-the-art museum, gallery, and cultural venue practices, as well as best practice in tourism and tourism development for products and events, and to introduce data gathering and feedback tools to facilitate data gathering practices across the sector in terms of things like visitor and customer information, as well as to continue board evaluations, the sorts of profiling that they did, the self-evaluations that they did for this plan on an ongoing basis. And the next. Oh, I was going to note that 2 factors are currently limiting cultural organizations from accessing external funding, which really is the backbone of operational funding for cultural organizations, not only in Ontario, but across Canada. And those 2 factors are a shortage of professional staff expertise, training, and secondly, industry standard climate controlled collection storage space. The second point, the industry standard climate controlled collection storage space, is actually going to be addressed by the feasibility study that is about to commence for future cultural facilities in Kawartha Lakes. And hopefully it will look at some mechanism, and preferably more logically a shared option for that, so that each organization isn't required to provide its own climate controlled collection storage space that can be shared. But those are the 2 points that need to be addressed and corrected so that they become eligible for either provincial or federal operational funding grants. And there are lots of them out there. And the other priority that I had identified as needing attention is expanding cultural sector funding options. And under that objective and priority, the actions that are identified are around providing grant writing assistance, having cultural organizations move towards building a revenue stream into their business plans, which currently most of them do not do, with the exception of Settlers Village, improving philanthropic and business support, and that is something that can be accomplished through programs such as the Arts Fest program. We've got 8 or 9 organizations that have now completed that training who could mentor others on that to help make more of that philanthropic and business support to come to fruition here. And finally, municipal support offered in terms of a modest performance-based operational grant program, the purpose of which would be to provide an incentive for local cultural organizations to improve their own operational and professional capacities so that they are eventually able to qualify for and obtain provincial and federal operational funding, which they can't currently obtain at this point in time. So those would be the highest priorities that I would identify.
So to put it, so we're at level A, we need to invest to take it to level B, which would enable us to apply for funding from outside sources, which would enable us to take it to the next level and continue that momentum, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, exactly. It's a stepwise plan, it's a long-term plan, but unless we can make those first 2 steps happen, the 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th steps are going to be extremely difficult.
Thank you. Councillor Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question through you to the CAO. Do we have somebody in-house that I've always considered grant writing an art? You know, it's not just merely filling out the papers. It's a true art, and only very, very few people can do it well. Do we have somebody in-house that's capable of helping with grant writes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have some expertise now in grant writing internally. We haven't expanded it out beyond our own sort of municipal needs, but I think it's a strength there. I actually, if you don't mind, even to expand on it though in terms of moving forward in some of the priorities. There are other investments that the municipality is already making to start to build this infrastructure. I think it's great that it's being exposed through this plan. So business planning, again, is one that we have a strong expertise in our enterprise center, for example, and even some of the other program areas. So, yes.
Any further questions? We have a motion to receive the presentation. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you very much. You're going to stick around for the report, I assume? See if there's any further questions. We won't let you go that easy. Thank you. So we'll move into item 5.2.1, which is the Cultural Master Plan. We have a motion here that the report ED 220005 Cultural Master Plan 2020-2030 be received. That Council approve the Cultural Master Plan 2020-2030 as outlined in Appendix A to report ED 2020-005. That staff bring forward to Council implementation action items for consideration through the annual budget processes, and that this recommendation be brought forward to Council for consideration at the next regular Council meeting. Councillor Richardson, you'll move that, seconded by Councillor Vale. Councillor Richardson, did you want to speak to it?
Yes, I will actually. Thank you. And through you, I'm very well versed of listening what's been going on right here, and I listened to Rebecca saying what we have achieved through the first cultural master plan, and we've achieved those. So by lining this out the way they have, I think we're moving the municipality in a forward position again. So I'm in great support of this action plan. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vale, do you want to speak to it?
No, I think I'm fine. I agree with Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. Councillor O'Reilly, you had a question from earlier for staff. Did you want to?
Yeah, I think it partially got answered with your question as well, sort of thing. I think Deborah elaborated on the areas the inhibiting areas. Just to build on Ron's answer, we have a number of people in-house, but do you feel as though that maybe through to Ron or to Rebecca that we could use more expertise in the grant writing, as Councillor Dunn had suggested, because there are so many grants that come available no matter what department. I'm just wondering if, whether it's a full-time person or whether you feel as though that we could use more capacity in that area.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, again, I think we have the proper resources to manage sort of our municipal sort of core services and grants, certainly tracking and implementing them. I'm not sure to the extent of the amount of additional grant writing support that would be needed out there. I think what I was suggesting is that there is some expertise or some guidance. I think we would work with them. But I think it's important to also recognize there's a lot of other areas. The one I forgot to mention, so I'm glad you asked me the question, was the big investment that I think this council made was in our records and archives area. And you saw one of the main priorities being shared storage. So these are those sort of quiet investments that are really advancing this program forward. And I think there's a number of them across the organization. And we'll leverage them to the fullest.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore.
Mr. Mayor, just two comments and two questions. And first one was I was at the cultural summit there south of Bob Cajun in Lakeview Arts Barn, which is in Ward 6, and it was a great day, and everybody came together and put forward a lot of good ideas. And I think, Mr. Mayor, you said, I forget when it was, but sometime last year, and it's certainly true that the arts community like this, it's not a special interest group, it's an economic driver, this particular segment of our economy, so, and it's important. I have two questions, and if I could ask it through you to one of the staff. On page 70 of the, it says cultural businesses, advertising, graphic arts, and web design. There was one company that was trying to get their name in there, Jack's Group in Lindsay, but it was omitted, and I was wondering, she did have consultation with Deborah, but the company was not inserted in there, Jack's Group, and I'm just wondering if we could add that, possibly.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, absolutely. It's entirely possible that there are additional names and businesses that needed to be added to this database. This review was completed in May to June. So between that time and now, again, it's entirely possible that there are additions and changes to make, but yes, we can make those.
Thank you. Just one more question. On page 105, you go through, before that, a little bit afterwards, you go through your SWOT analysis, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities and threats. On page 105, you list the Ontario government as a threat. I'm just wondering why they did that.
Okay, I think that was identified by someone just as a response to the provincial election. I think that's all that was. That was a community addition.
I just found that kind of awkward because, we're trying to work with our provincial government and
Yes.
they bring money here, and it's just to say something like that, I didn't think that was appropriate. That's just my comment, but.
It wasn't my comment, as I said, it was through the engagement process.
Can they take it out?
If you wish. I'll make a note of it.
Yeah, it's just a comment. Any other questions on the report? Okay. We have a motion for the cultural master plan as printed. Call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you very much for your work on that. We appreciate it. I think our clerk wants to make a quick introduction. Speaking of records and archives, go ahead.
Thank you, through the mayor. I thought this was a good opportunity because we're on the topic of culture and arts and archives and all those historical matters, that it would be a good opportunity to introduce our new manager of corporate records and archives, Angela Fornelli. That's Angela. So Angela she's here today to listen to the cultural presentation, and will be working closely with the group and bring her expertise to the table. Thank you.
Welcome, Angela. Okay, that's it for Cultural Master Plan. We'll move down to item 5.3, which is the Kawartha Lakes Data Intelligence Tool presentation. Lindsay Shoemakers, Economic Development Officer for Business. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. So today I'm going to give a quick presentation on the Kawartha Lakes Local Data Intelligence Tool. So the Economic Development Strategy supports the expansion of existing companies, job creation, and attracting new businesses. Along with the Downtown Revitalization Committee, also encouraging a robust downtown business community, and through the Downtown Revitalization Action Plan, a key action item was to create a toolkit that supports existing businesses and attracting new businesses. So this online interactive business and investment tool will help drive job growth and investment in Kawartha Lakes. There are links that are embedded into Kawartha Lakes website that feature interactive dashboards, dynamic maps, how-to guides, and resource connections that showcase Kawartha Lakes. This tool was also developed by a Canadian technology firm called Local Intel. This tool is a terrific resource to promote our local advantages, engage businesses, and drive economic development. This tool will help businesses make more informed decisions about locating to Kawartha Lakes and opening a business. So we're going to watch a quick video, that highlights the features of what Local Intel can do for us.
I'm Dave Parcell, co-founder and CEO of Local Intel. Today, attracting investment and creating jobs is priority number one for our communities. And the most powerful tool that economic developers have to do this is the internet. So here at Local Intel, we're on a mission to give all municipalities, chambers of commerce, and economic development corporations the online tools they need to promote local strengths, share local data, and support local job growth. Here's how it works for economic developers. We've created a first-of-its-kind catalogue of online economic development tools. You can pick one, some, or all of the tools depending on your needs or your budget. It's up to you. We can then integrate the tools into your existing website, or we can bundle the tools together into your very own standalone site. It's up to you. Businesses, investors and site selectors can then go online to use your economic development tools to review your business climate, taxes, incentives, research who and where their customers are, and analyse the competition. They can evaluate your local workforce, find new businesses and investment opportunities in your community, identify zoning controls and where businesses can operate, check your transportation networks and traffic counts, find available properties and much more. Before we started this company, we went out and talked to over 100 economic development professionals. And what I heard was, most of them don't have a lot of time or budget. So here's the best bit. We build, host and update these tools for you. They're affordable and they're beautiful. So if you want your community to offer world-class online economic development tools and you don't have much time or budget, then take a closer look.
Can you just put your microphone on? Sorry.
Sorry. This is a screenshot of our city community profile and a list of the links that businesses are able to view. So they are able to click on any one of these links and it will direct them to the site, which will provide information that they are looking for. So as the video said, you can analyze, research your customers, analyze your competition, and type in exactly what industry you're looking for. However, if there is an industry that there isn't data on, there is a help feature. So they are able to connect with us in economic development, and we are able to provide that exact information that they are looking for. So the wonderful thing about this tool is that it walks businesses through basic questions that they might be asking about our community, such as the business climate. So this is just a screenshot of what is on the business climate page. There's a lot more information on it, but this is what I've provided today. A question that we often receive is about our workforce and how can businesses find the workforce that they need. So this page will walk businesses through key questions such as what is the key workforce indicators in Kawartha Lakes, where are employees that they need, and how can they use this information. There is also a page where businesses are able to find additional resources. So they can find local resources within Kawartha Lakes that would be able to help with their business endeavors. And this is just an example of 2 that we have on their page. There are a lot more that we are providing. So the Local Intel, the tool was launched on Small Business Week in October of 2019 through a press release and many social media posts that went out. The Small Business Center also did a share to all their potential and current clients to let them know about the site. And then, of course, we have the integration of buttons throughout the city's website. And moving forward, we will continually promote the tool through our social media channels and economic development, as well as working with the communications department to promote it through the city's social media channels. And a postcard has been created, which you have in front of you. So this postcard will be distributed to our local chambers, the BIA, Small Business Center. We'll be sharing it as often as they can, and anybody else that is looking to receive copies, I'd be happy to provide them. And if you, council, would like to receive more, I'd be happy to get some more copies to you. With the increase in engagement, it helps to strengthen the need to continue providing businesses with this level of detailed local information. Local Intel has also let me know that they are extremely impressed with our analytics. Our metrics are among the top 5 of their municipal clients in North America. And they also use our site as a case study on how to utilize the local intel subscription. By providing reliable and comprehensive data that is accessed quickly and easily, it helps businesses make smarter, faster, and better business decisions. So economic development will continue to promote the city of Kawartha Lakes through the tool as an attractive place for entrepreneurs, business leaders, and site selectors to grow and thrive.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Lindsay. That's good stuff. We get a motion, please, to receive the presentation. Councillor Dunn and Yo. Councillor Dunn, you had a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. The screen there where you talked about bounce rates and time on the site, is that considered good, or is that something we really need to work on?
It's definitely something that we can, the bounce rate it's average. It's something that we can definitely improve on, but as we continue to promote the site, we will see it go down. And local intel updates their...
Okay, so when I look at the average visitation, and because it says seconds,
It's a minute.
there we go, that's better.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to say 1.14 seconds and then they go someplace else.
Yeah, it's
Doesn't
so
sound very
they
good
are
to
finding
me.
or they're coming back to our site, or they're reaching out to us to get,
Okay.
you know, we're really keen on coming to Kawartha Lakes, so they're bouncing off and coming to connect with us. So,
Okay, thank
yeah,
you.
Definitely, as we continue to work with this program and work with local intel to add more data, you know, we'll just continue to improve our numbers.
No, that's fine. No, I'm quite happy. If they're there for a minute, I think that's good.
Yeah.
If they're there for 1.14 seconds, I'm just kind of doubting the value.
I thought the same thing. I just wasn't going to say anything. Councillor Ashmore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Lindsay. So when people come onto the site, can they also look at things like how they could go to a pre-consultation or go through the planning process and things like that if they want to invest in a community or build, develop, that sort of thing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they, not on the actual local intel site, but if that is something that they're interested in doing, they can go to the additional resources, or down at the bottom of the page, they can connect with economic development, and we can help them go through that process.
So following up on that, this council made a pretty bold decision in the fall regarding our DC bylaw and the waiving of DC charges. Is that something that's a pretty big incentive for businesses, whether they want to expand or relocate or build? Is that something that ties in with this as well? Or again, is that something that if they get to that point, it would be further down the page?
There is a page, the business climate page. If you scroll down to the bottom, unfortunately, I had limited space on what I could provide here. There is an incentive. So we can show any incentives that we have in the city of Kawartha Lakes. Like currently the $1 Million Makeover's on there. There's just a little bit more information that redirects them to our site. So it would be same with the development charges, that we would absolutely have that in bold letters that our DC.
Yeah, I would think it would be one of our major drawing points for anybody looking to expand or relocate for
Yeah,
sure. So hopefully
definitely
you're utilizing that while we have it.
Draw attention to it.
Good, thank you. Further questions? We have a motion to receive. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Follow that is the report. Kawartha Lakes Data Intelligence Tool be received, and that this recommendation be brought forward to council for consideration at the next regular council meeting. Councillor Yo and Dunn, all in favor? That's passed. Thank you. We'll go down to item 611. We've already dealt with the high water bill. 612 is various bylaw review and updates from our bylaw manager. Motion that report MLE 2020-001 bylaw review and updates be received, that the recommended bylaws be amended and forwarded to council for adoption, and that this recommendation be brought forward to council for consideration at the February 18th regular council meeting. You'll move that, Councillor Yo. Thank you. Second, Councillor Riley. Any questions, comments? Most of them pretty straightforward to me, but call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. 621 is a memo from Councillor Dunn, that the memorandum from Councillor Dunn regarding the sale of municipal property be received, Staff be directed to review all public land sale processes requiring an appraisal to determine fair market value and make recommendations to council at the March 10th Committee of the Whole meeting to update these processes to include the provision of the appraisal report to council prior to authorizing the final transfer of the lands, and that this recommendation be brought forward to council at the next regular council meeting. Councillor Dunn, I assume you'll move that. See if we get you a seconder, and then you can speak to it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion, then if I get a seconder, I'll
Thank
explain
you.
it.
And we want to second that. Councillor Yeo, go ahead, Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The intent is not to impede or slow down sales. The intent is to understand. Just like on the fire hall thing, if we're going to be fiscally responsible, we have to know how numbers are arrived at. So, and I'll give you an example. When we made a decision on the development charges to waive them for commercial properties over a certain footage. Now, we've done that with eyes open. So if and when Walmart ever comes here and people say that we're funding Walmart, we made a conscious decision to do that. We did it eyes open. I think when we sell property, we should be doing the same thing so that we can defend our decisions, or at least understand our decisions as why we make them. And that's the purpose of the motion.
Councillor Yeo, do you want to speak to it? No. I'm just going to ask our solicitor, I'm a little bit confused on what you're asking for and when here, so I'm just wondering if it's clear to you, Robin, that it is to me. Is there any clarification you need, or does this give you clear direction moving forward?
It does give me clear direction. The bylaw that we operate under currently does require the city to obtain an appraisal and sell land for no less than full cost recovery of our out-of-pocket costs, like for staff time, advertising, as well as achieve the appraised value over and above that. So what I understand is that council is asking that I report back on every land sale in advance of a land sale to have council confirm that I have achieved the objectives set out and the requirements set out in the bylaw.
So when we declare a property surplus, you bring it forward, we declare it surplus, you go out and you go through the process of getting an appraisal and everything else. There's no other touch point with council except for the bylaw, right, at the end? If it goes out on the open market, it's appraised value, and then it's above the appraised value, the offer, what you're selling it for, it doesn't need to come back to council until the final bylaw. Is that when you would be bringing back a copy of the appraisal before that final touch point with council? Is that the idea?
That's correct. So a report goes to council, and that report suggests that a certain property would be declared surplus for eventual sale, and that is brought to Committee of the Whole and then to council. Subsequently, that's when we have the property appraised, and we bring, if we get a buyer at appraised value plus all of the cost spent in advertising the property, then we would return with only a bylaw, not a second report, indicating the transfer and getting authority for the transfer of the land. At that time would be when I would provide a confidential report indicating all of the cost to confirm to council that I had achieved the objectives, the requirements in the bylaw.
No, I'm good with that. Is that your intention? You're clear? Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure because I was just a little confused on the wording. Any other questions on that? Do you want to sum up? Pretty straightforward. Call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. We have nothing from closed. We just, that's it. We need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Richardson, Councillor Yeo, all in favor? That's passed. Or adjourned. Thank you.